All right, today we are talking about the Option-O Lagom P100. This is a 98 mil high-end flat burr grinder. I really want to talk about why I like this grinder and how it compares to some other options on the market in the 98 millimeter space. Now, in my opinion, with 98 millimeter flat burrs, these high-end grinders, single dosing, this style of grinder, taste is something that is kind of not really an important factor here for me, because every single 98 millimeter flat is probably going to be really good. And the second is that most of these 98 millimeter flats, especially with the P100, we're using the 98 millimeter high uniformity burrs from SSP. Levercraft Ultra can have the same burrs. Titus, Nautilus can have the same burrs. A lot of grinders can use the same exact burrs. And I would argue that the alignment in a lot of these grinders is pretty good. The differences are going to be workflow, what is it like to live with, sound, grind speed, accessing the burrs, retention, all of that. And those are the things that I think you should focus on if you are going to spend $3 grand on a grinder. In the world of 98 mil flats, the main point of comparison that I want to focus on, that I have the most experience with, is the Cafetech Monolith Flat Max. Now, I do have experience with an EK43, but I don't really think people considering something like this should consider an EK43. But comparing this to the Flat Max, the biggest difference is in that workflow, is that the grind speed is much faster. You're getting 18 grams out in about 3-4 seconds, which is insanely fast. And the second is how you actually get the additional coffee out. Basically, retention and what is it like after the coffee is ground. With the P100, there's a knocker here that is actually integrated into the grinder, unlike something like the Ultra, you got to take the entire thing off. Same thing with the Flat Max, you got to take the entire thing off. It's so much more convenient to just have everything built into the grinder. And the one really nice feature that nobody else is currently doing is an automatic high RPM mode. Basically, after the coffee is ground fully through, the grinder will up the RPM, and all of the excess coffee that is retained in here will go out. You can, of course, stick a puffer on here. With the Flat Max, you can stick a puffer on there. I've never really had any sort of complaints with grinders in this price point when it comes to retention or exchange. It's very straightforward. You put the coffee in, the coffee comes out, and it comes out great. And doing that is very, very simple. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you that right now. So I'm gonna now show you how to grind coffee on a P100. Super straightforward. So I have 18.1 grams here, and there are dogs here. And I just do 2 spritz of for RDT here, give it a little bit of a shake, and then I pour the beans in here. And there is a little bit of a hopper here that, or a little bit of a thing to basically prevent the beans from popcorning. And sometimes your beans can get stuck on here because it's just such a big surface and you're RDTing. Now with this, I love that they have a magnetic portafilter dosing funnel. Like, this is super nice. It's also color matched, unlike the P64, but really convenient here. And I like that, at least for the decent portafilters, this hooks in super nicely. And now the magic happens. This is super fast. Grounds are super fluffy, by the way. 18.1 grams in 2-3 seconds. And it does also automatically up the RPM to help get the retention out, but I do, and you can do it in any sort of step you want, but I do like that there is a little knocker there. Now, some P100 owners do say, hey, the knocker doesn't really do much, and we've already seen people do some adjustments to the little knocker, like people have mods and stuff. But honestly, for the fact that this is all integrated into one solution is really nice. And I love that there is that automatic RPM bump there, and it just makes this experience so smooth. And what's really nice with the grounds coming out of the P100, really, I would say this is because of the 98HU to some extent, is the grounds are just so fluffy and they're really easy to work with. The retention is still within 0.1 or so, and it's so easy. And that's something that you don't get with a lot of 98 mil flats. With something like the EK, if you're crazy enough to run an EK in your house, it's way louder than this and it's way messier than this, even if you RDT. With even something like my favorite, my Flat Max, I love the Flat Max. The Flat Max, it takes a minute to grind 18 grams. This thing took 3 seconds. And the fact that there's a knocker in here just makes that experience so much nicer, and that auto RPM, basically turbo mode. At this price point, this is what differentiates the P100 from the Flat Max, from everything else, is that workflow, is just the easiest workflow I've ever had on a 98mm flat. It's definitely probably up there with even something like the niche, which I love the niche for the workflow. I don't really like the niche's coffee anymore, but the workflow of this is so nice, and that's just something that is kind of rare, I feel like, in the 98mm world. It's rare to see so much work coming into this when it comes to quality of life, ergonomics of this, things not falling off when you're grinding coffee, things not spraying everywhere. And I just, it's great. The workflow is really just so good. I'm raving about this. Build quality, of course, with all Option-O products and all 98mm flats anyway, are all gonna be good. They're all built amazingly. And the additional thing that does set the P100 apart is the easy access to burrs. I'm dialed in for this coffee, so I'm not gonna unscrew this, but the thing is, you just unscrew it and it comes out. It's so easy. There's no tools. And that's what makes this super easy. And I think the P100 is a really great choice for a lot of enthusiasts, just pretty much because you can swap burrs super easy. You just buy your new fancy 98mm burrs, unscrew this, unscrew the burrs, align, stick it in, pops in, just like that. So simple. So now let's talk about flavors, taste comparison between like a 64MP and 98mm HU. Spoiler alert, 98HU are basically a turbocharged version of 64MP. They're both similar in terms of high clarity, fast extracting, big flat burrs. The difference is that the 98mm high uniformity are basically this, but turned up way more. There really isn't much more to be said there regarding the P100. So for fun, I'm gonna pull some shots of 98mm HU versus 64MP. My friend Guy, I'm at his place, he's here. Our conclusions are still like 98mm HU is 64MP, but turned up a bit. SSP naming is confusing, by the way. Also, look at this orange decent, man. Look at this thing. And I don't know if you can hear it on the mic here, but this has been modified a bit, so this is incredibly quiet. You probably can hear my voice over the decent. If you don't have modified decent, it is gonna be much louder. But we're just pulling Londinium styles shots on both of these grinders. We got them both dialed in fairly closely, and we're just gonna pull some shots and A/B. So for a point of comparison, while he's cleaning that, I'm gonna just show you the P64. P64 workflow is also very, very good, but P100 workflow is even better than the P64. Mismatched. So sad. So everything is matte black here, even the Mini, except this. But here we go. Now the biggest difference is the P64 is much quieter. That, no beans. And then put this in. Grind speed is much slower on a P64, but it is definitely quieter. So this is another one of these situations, which is, hey, do you want something that's really loud for a short period of time, or do you want something that's much quieter, but grinds much longer? But I do think in cup, these two grinders, at least 64MP and 98mm HU, are quite similar. I do want to bring up some points regarding 98mm HU that might be interesting, but I think for most folks, you probably will like either of these if you're into high clarity espresso. So let's do P100. Okay. Cheers.
It's really good.
This is really good.
It's really good.
This is good.
It's really good.
Yeah. So this is the fellow Drops Gesha.
It kind of just tastes like raspberry jam.
It does taste like raspberry jam.
It's really, really balanced, but it's like you turn the volume up on like all the little flavors.
Yeah. Okay. All right. P64.
Okay.
P64.
It's already like off the nose. It's not as floral.
It's not. Yeah. It's not as aromatic.
It's kind of just like a worse version of what we just had.
It is just yeah. So that is kind of the biggest difference. I do think in P100 98mm HU, it seems like there is a I mean, every single flavor note is turned up just a little bit more. It's a bit clearer. I think the way the shot finishes on 98 HU.
It's not as, it like mellows out a little
Yes.
better. It's a little cleaner in the palate.
Yes.
Like, I think that if someone didn't enjoy coffee and they tasted these two, it would be a stark difference.
Dang, this is good.
It's really good,
This is
right?
good. This is really good. The 64 multi-purpose shot does have a little bit of sweetness in this, but it's just every single property in cup of the 98 mil high uniformity is just, it's just better. It's literally just better. And
it's
I'm
like
like,
you have the same coffee and you just turned up the volume. Like,
yeah.
You're like, I'm going to make this a better cup.
Yeah. Now there is one thing to note on forgiveness between the two. So 98 mil HU is definitely one of these grinders that you're going to need to get good. You gotta get good when you're using this burr set, because all of those. So we have these dialed in, and my prep is okay, so that everything in the cup does taste really good. But if you mess up, this is gonna punish you. You're gonna taste those defects. That's been my experience of using 98 mil HU across multiple grinders. But the thing is if you want to try again, if you want to dial in it again, the workflow of this grinder is much easier than every other grinder out there. That's a big plus. But yeah, I mean, 98 mil HU are better than 64 MP. It's not surprising. It's a burr set that costs, I think, 3 times as much. But pretty much, again, both of these are just nice burr carriers. But really, you should chase kind of your experience here. And they all make great coffee. But this is probably still the best when it comes to workflow. Let's go ahead and show you some more close-ups.
That's so quiet.
I know. Side by side, you're like, what?
So yeah, that's the P100 and some brief comparisons to the P64, and also I'll be talking about these 3 grinders all together in the future, the whole Option-O Lagom lineup. But honestly, P100 is the best 98 mil flat right now when it comes to just workflow using it. The P100 is just an incredibly easy grinder to use. It's so straightforward. RDT, put the coffee beans in, and you're good to go. There really isn't much more that needs to be said, because that's how well this grinder is designed, and that's really something that you should look at when you are considering on spending a lot of money is, well, all the coffee is going to be good from all these different grinders. What you should focus on is your experience. How is it like living with one of these? And I think for a lot of people, you're going to be very interested in this grinder because of how easy it is to use. But otherwise, I'll be having a bunch of other comparisons of grinders coming up soon. I want to thank my friend Guy for letting me film in his house, as well as letting me use his P100. And I thank you again for spending the time to watch the video. And please let me know if you have any questions, but I'll see you around. We're done, and we can